Every nation on Earth is in debt. The United States alone owes over $38 trillion, an all-time high. The European Union carries $14 trillion, and even nations like Saudi Arabia and China are deeply in the red. But here's the catch. If every country owes, who are they in debt to? Who holds the world's promises? To understand this, we need to look back to the origin of national debt, centuries before the first credit card or digital transfer. The story starts not with money, but with war, and from there, the modern financial system was born. The year is 1694. England is locked in a bitter war with France, and its coffers are nearly empty. The king, desperate for funds, turns to merchants for help. In exchange for a steady stream of interest payments backed by future taxes, these merchants agree to finance the crown. This arrangement becomes the foundation of something revolutionary: the Bank of England. Now, for the first time, the state could spend money it didn't yet have. In return, those who lent money to the crown received a promise, an IOU, that could be traded, bought, and sold. The government bond was born. What began as a solution to war debts became the very structure of modern finance. France would soon adopt the idea, and the Netherlands would refine it. The United States would use it to fund its revolution and expansion. Over time, national debt ceased to be a mark of failure. Instead, it became a measure of credibility, a sign of a country's ability to borrow and to rule. Empires that once extracted gold from conquered lands now issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield had shifted to the balance sheet. Fast forward to the 21st century, and debt has become the world's dominant export. The United States owes over $38 trillion. Japan more than $9 trillion. Global borrowing increases by the equivalent of $1 trillion every 100 days. Every nation owes, every bank lends, and every citizen is both a debtor and a creditor through taxes, savings, and pensions. But who holds the other end of the rope? Let's focus on the United States. Of its $38 trillion debt, about half is publicly held, meaning owed to investors, not other parts of the government. Around 2/3 of these investors are American banks, pension funds, and insurance companies, including the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining third, about $9 trillion, is in foreign hands. Japan holds roughly $1 trillion, followed by China with $800 billion, and then the UK, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when people say the US is in debt to China, it's only true for about 2% of the total. Most of America's debt is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds, banks and funds buy them, and the Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. The cycle continues. Americans pay taxes to fund interest on these bonds, and the funds flow into American retirement accounts. It's a circular system. The debt is real, but the creditor is mostly just a reflection of the same system. This circularity isn't unique to the US, it's global. Japan lends to the US through treasuries. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. And in turn, developing nations lend back to advanced economies by holding foreign exchange reserves and Western bonds. It's a global game of hot potato, but the potato is made of promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU, and every promise is secured by another promise. It's like a poker table where every player has borrowed chips from the next. The only rule keeping the game alive is that no one stands up. But behind this complex web, there's a more powerful force at play: the markets themselves. Institutions like hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks manage trillions in assets. They are the true arbiters of credit. They decide which nations can borrow at low rates and which will pay a premium for survival. When they lose confidence, currencies collapse, governments fall, and economies can be restructured in an instant. Democracy may decide who governs, but it's the markets that decide who survives. And at the very top of this financial system sits the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, they create new money in exchange. The liability of one balance sheet becomes the asset of another. Every dollar in circulation represents a unit of debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every bill, every digital dollar carries an invisible IOU. For decades, this loop has sustained itself with confidence. As long as investors believe governments will continue paying interest, even if the principal is never repaid, the machine keeps turning. But what happens when that confidence falters? We've seen it before. In 2010, Greece's government debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked, yields spiked. The European Central Bank and the IMF intervened, but their rescue came with a painful price: austerity. Taxes rose, spending was cut, and unemployment surged. For an entire generation, bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when the government ran out of foreign currency to service its loans. When the system breaks down, the creditors come into sharp focus: the IMF, rating agencies, and anonymous bondholders who hold entire nations by the throat. But even after collapse, the same cycle resumes. New loans replace old ones. Old debts are restructured. The machine resets, but the name on the balance sheet changes. In the 21st century, debt is no longer meant to be paid off. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments don't plan to repay their debt. They refinance it forever. This is not a conspiracy, it's policy. When you or I take out a loan, we are expected to repay the principal. But for governments, debt operates differently. They treat it like a rolling subscription, issuing new bonds to pay off old ones, a process known as refinancing. Interest becomes the real product, the rent charged for stability, and the global economy depends on that rent. Like a shark that must keep swimming to survive, the financial system cannot afford to stop. The United States will never clear its $38 trillion debt. It will refinance it for as long as it can. Japan has been doing this for decades, with debt now exceeding 250% of its GDP. And yet, Japanese government bond yields remain near zero. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid, they're waiting to renew the deal. Why? Because government debt is the safest collateral in existence. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't seen as a liability, it's an asset, the cornerstone of global markets. The system relies on governments never paying off their debt, because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. Imagine if Washington decided to pay off every last dollar of its debt. Banks and funds around the world would suddenly lose their most stable asset. The dollar supply would shrink, triggering deflation and collapse. Paying off the debt would destroy the very thing that makes the global economy function. So, governments do the opposite. They issue more debt, not recklessly, but with rhythm. The debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism itself, pulsing through every pension, mortgage, and market on Earth. That's why when politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying down the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal isn't to eliminate debt, it's to keep it sustainable, serviceable, and desirable enough that the system never stops believing in it. Because once belief fades, the numbers stop mattering. Confidence collapses, interest rates spike, and the entire system grinds to a halt. That's the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to repay it. The plan is to keep the world believing it will. It's a closed loop of trust. As long as that trust holds, the numbers can stretch indefinitely. But trust is not evenly distributed. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that's half true. The interest payments don't flow equally through society. They flow upward, from workers and taxpayers to the institutions and investors that hold the debt. Debt isn't just a transfer between countries, it's a transfer between classes. The rich who own the debt get richer. The poor who pay it stay trapped in a cycle of ever-increasing inequality. And this, at its core, is the engine that powers the modern financial system. The problem is, what happens when the engine runs out of fuel? When borrowing can no longer keep up with the promises made before? At the top of this global pyramid, there is no single face to blame. It isn't China, Wall Street, or the IMF. It's all of them, and us. The modern financial system has turned debt itself into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor is no longer clear. Debt, once a form of bondage, has become a form of balance. But if that balance tips, if confidence breaks,
the illusion ends, and we'll remember what debt really is, a promise that can't be kept forever.